What's up, everybody? The world's a better place because you were here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I'm the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. It is a Wednesday, the 3rd of November, and let's talk about the first week of the college football season. Me and Ryan Page are here to recap what took place on a very interesting first week of the college football season. And before we do, I just want to remind you to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcast platforms and YouTube. And don't forget to check out exclusive content regarding this show across all social media platforms on Instagram at Productive Conversations Podcast, X and Twitter at ProdConvoPod. We're on TikTok at Productive Conversations and Facebook at Productive Conversations. And as always, don't you forget to check out our presenting sponsor, Magic Mind. Magic Mind, the world's first productivity shop. If you have a busy life like me, in terms of producing podcasts, living your life, going through work, trying to have a social life and just living the best life I could live, well, one of the best ways to help me get through this crazy world is by having the world's first productivity shot in Magic Mind. Magic Mind, through its matches, nootropics, its signature vitamins and ingredients, I feel very, very calm throughout the day. My mind is definitely not clouded, and I feel ultimately more inspired to go about my day. So if you want the positive feelings I'm having, go to magicmind.com/PCJune for 48% of your first subscription or 20% of your first one-time purchase. That is magicmind.com/PCJune for 40% of your first subscription or 20% of your first one-time purchase. Magic Mind, reclaim your brain. Ryan, we had quite the week in college football, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I do think it was interesting. Well, I mean, we're gonna get into it, but there's a lot of preseason assumptions that were definitely assumptions.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But we'll go through that, hit the major headlines of the college football season, then look at the change of the top 25 pool and maybe preview some
hmm
games that really interest us heading into the second week of the college football season. So Ryan, why don't we actually start with the latest college football game? The reason why this is being released on a Wednesday because they had a rare Monday night football game. The
Yes.
scene was set. Bill Belichick had his college football debut, and it did not go as expected. A brutal, absolutely brutal loss to TCU right in
Mhm.
front of their home court. Home field, right in front of their home field fans. They lost by a score of 48-14. For somebody who's known for being a defensive minded head coach, only being a 3.5 point favorite, they shit the bed to a point where Kirk Herbstreit himself on a hot mic said they're bad. A poor defense.
Took a hot mic from him to say it, but yeah.
Yeah. Poor defensive play. The quarterback looked lost. Major turnovers. Turnovers that turn into scores. After scoring first in the first quarter, that was it.
Yep.
And they are quite a mess. But yes, they look bad on defense, look bad on offense. They don't seem to have a real direction. And even
hmm
getting, I think, 70 new players from the pool and all the hype Belichick had. This is not how you wanted to start the season.
No, I think we learned a valuable lesson about hype in that it's not worth not worth the airtime it's used up on it. It's hype is everything, but not to use a wrestling parlance, but then the bell rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whistle blows, game starts, and hype doesn't do anything for you at that point. So we did learn that. And I mean, yeah, it was just not a good football game for North Carolina. Um, yeah. It was bad. I don't I don't want to sit here and say for sure it belongs solely on Belichick. I tweeted about this. Like the reality is this team wasn't good last year. They had a losing record last year. They lost two conference games last year, so they didn't even sniff competition within their conference. They lost the bowl game they made it to. I'm surprised they made a bowl game, for being honest. I think they did because of conference affiliation as opposed to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Fenway Bowl required somebody from their conference to represent them. Um, I mean, yeah. So this is this. If this team had done a full like 180 turnaround and absolutely stomped on TCU, that would have been one of the most impressive feats in like coaching history. Forget college or professional. The team wasn't that good. But I think people were genuinely trying to make that the expectation. And obviously that was not correct to make that the expectation. That being said, I think they also failed to deliver even on modest expectations of the team looking improved under one of the most legendary coaches in football ever. So that's a problem that they'll have to address at some point. But I do think the expectation game, this was one of the two, frankly, who fell victim of other people's expectations.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's ugly, absolutely ugly.
Hmm.
Had to switch the quarterback out, no running game at all, and yeah, TCU off to a great start. And I heard the
Yeah.
coach talk about how they felt disrespected, and they did. Nobody, nobody really gave them a chance, even though they were the favorite in the game. But
Hmm.
they really established themselves. So why don't we just hit the big questions this right away. At this moment, it seems that Belichick was always a mortar for Tom Brady. He's definitely leading this debate in fine fashion too. I mean, not even winning in the pros so far. I mean, not even winning outside of the pros. Can't win in college.
Yeah, well, again, they handed him a bad team. I think we do. Again, I want to make that clear. This is not a
But
good
though, even
football
even
team.
with 70 recruits, you didn't think they could get. They really couldn't have made any
Well,
type of dent.
sure they could have. Like anything's possible. I'm not saying they couldn't have, but it's like 70 recruits, but Belichick has never had to do that. Like who are these recruits? The first recruit he signed played lacrosse.
Yeah,
First
that's
recruit was a
yeah.
lacrosse player. It's like, okay, I mean, cool, but like I don't believe that. I think that college football isn't what people think it is. It's different than the NFL because of the college part, because of the student part. And it's certainly not, you know, youth sports, right? It's certainly a business with billions of dollars being generated, but I think that he overestimated some of the office stuff that he just didn't have to deal with as the head coach of the Patriots. Um, and now he does have to deal with it. And yeah, I genuinely do think that he just underestimated that portion of it. So yes, he had a big haul, and you knew he was going to. Same with what's the same as when Sanders took over in Colorado. You knew that that was going to attract people. That was going to make people interested in the program. That's why you got 70 people. But who were the 70 is essentially the question.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, ugly debut, and well, we have to say so far this Jordan Hudson girlfriend situation hasn't improved his coaching game. And we saw her
Yeah.
talk to him on the field. I thought that was a funny thing that should have been brought up more in the national media for the stories
Mm.
I saw. Like she went up to the field at one point. That's not allowed. Or
No, I yeah. I don't,
or
and
just
again,
they just let her just because they wanted a quick viral, very quick viral clip.
it could be. I don't know. I don't. Again, I don't want to put too much of the team's failure on a 24-year-old girl who's not one of the coaches. However, when you're gonna get beat that badly, you better make sure nobody's kid or spouse or whatever is anywhere near the sideline. Because otherwise that's just gonna be what people talk about. But they need some very serious improvements. I think it's clear that their starting rotation it shouldn't be locked in as their starting rotation. I think every week needs to be a competition for that team. So you play the hot hand.
What's his name? Gio Lopez, very poor
Hmm.
debut, and they had this guy Max Johnson come in at the end. I
Right.
believe a transfer from LSU.
Yeah, so genuinely speaking, I think every week is a tryout to start. Every week, every position. Whoever's got the hottest hand that week, that's your starting quarterback. Whoever's got the most catches, that's your starting wide receiver one. Whoever doesn't fumble the ball, that's your running back. I think they have to genuinely work it that way because whatever strategy they had was just didn't work.
No, it did not. No, it did not. All right. Why don't we now talk about the other highly anticipated debut for the college football season?
Mhm.
That I'm talking about Arch Manning's debut. And we
Yeah.
also had the return of the Ohio State Buckeyes, who were the national champions last year, obviously. They begin the season hosting number one ranked Texas. And though it was a great game on paper defensively, Arch Manning had a poor debut. Arch Manning only going 17 for 30, one touchdown, one interception, a total of 170 passing yards, and almost was unidentifiable. That doesn't really tell the full story. He was barely making a presence in the first three quarters of the game.
Mhm.
But you got to give credit because the Texas defense does look great,
Mhm.
and they played extremely well against Ohio State, and for this Jeremiah Smith, the Heisman Trophy favorite, they prevented him from only having 43 total yards in the air on six receptions. Julian Sayin, a quiet game himself, only 126 yards and a touchdown, going 13 for 20.
Mhm.
But Ohio State had a but Ohio State managed the game better towards the end to get the fourth quarter battle, and ultimately they pull away. Despite the game being close, March Manning did have difficulty for sure.
Mhm.
Creating takeaways for himself, not hitting receivers, um, and it was more of the rushing game of the offense, if anything, a total of 166 yards,
Mhm.
including 80 yards from Quinterian Wisner. But what do you think about the Arch Manning now? I see the hype will go down noticeably over the next couple of weeks, despite him having his first official start against a major, major Power Five school, and obviously the reigning national champion. I'm sure as a whole, people will give him a break for that. But for all the hype he's getting, you would think he would have gotten the job done.
I mean, yeah, I actually don't think people are going to give him a break. So one, I've seen this. It was a good defensive game. And Texas, by the way, did have a very good game defensively. It's the only reason the game wasn't,
They
it's the
didn't
only
run
reason
away with it.
it's the only reason Texas is frankly still within the top like 10,
Yeah, they
ranked.
opened this week at 7,
Yeah,
and we'll talk about
and
that.
yeah, right. We'll talk about it later. But the defense is the only reason they didn't fall out of the top 10. Arch Manning could not get a drive going to save his life. And I gotta be honest. Obviously, Ohio's got a decent defense. We're not here criticizing the reigning national champions on the defensive side of the ball, but it's not that good. You know what I mean? Like, look at the stat line. It's not like Arch got picked off or anything like that. Like, uh, uh, Texas lost the game almost as much as Ohio won the game. Because you need to score to win a football game, and Texas did not have anything that could get even close to scoring. Um, Again, he had more interceptions than touchdowns until the very, very end of the game.
Hmm.
So it's like, that's not certainly not Heisman contender. And yes, obviously you're facing the national champion. Again, I think people are going to be harsh on him because of one, the hype, and two, the last name. And I think he probably knows that. But if you're being like seriously considered a Heisman contender, and if your team is considered the best team in college football in the preseason, to score 1 point, it almost doesn't matter how good Ohio's defense is.
Hmm.
To score not 1 point, but one touchdown. To get one touchdown is not an acceptable outcome for a Texas offense that's you get supposedly number one ranked school, number one ranked quarterback, favorite to win the Heisman, not anymore, but so I said I didn't think he was going to do all that well. And that's not true. I said I didn't think he was going to be a Heisman contender this year. Obviously, there's a lot of time left. He's going to get to beat up on some bad schools, but if you look at the Texas schedule, it's like, yeah, you obviously had a really hard go at the very beginning. Kudos for taking that matchup, by the way. I think that should be said.
Yep.
It's better to have those matches than to not. But after you cakewalk a couple of these lesser schools, you're gonna run up against a LSU or a You know what I mean? Like, or Clemson or whoever who did have, even in losses, like, Clemson lost, Notre Dame lost, they still looked better than Texas.
Hmm.
So it's like, what do? You run up into Oregon, who had a great game. You can't hide from the good teams forever if you want to be a national champion. So we'll have to see, because so far against real competition, Arch has looked horrible. He's only had good games against these kind of scrub schools. Same with last
Yeah.
season. UNL is what's it called? UNL Monroe or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, UL
That's how
Monroe.
you
There we go.
trick this
Yeah.
public, Ryan. You play a school that is nowhere close to your competition. You throw 800 yards in your first two games, and your name's Manning. People think you are a combination of both Peyton and Eli,
Turns
but
out he's
clearly,
Cooper.
but at least it
uh,
shows that he is humbled, and now it's a matter of just bouncing back next week.
actually, I just went and clicked on their schedule.
Who do they play
Through
next?
So right now they got San Jose State, then they got UTEP, then they got Sam Houston. So they're gonna get three in a row
Hmm.
of nonsense essentially. Then it's Florida, which ranked team, but we'll see. It's early. Oklahoma again, ranked team. They did win. We'll see. It's early. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. They don't get to Georgia until toward the end of this calendar. They actually have a stupid easy calendar, all things considered. This is wow. That Ohio State is their toughest game,
Yeah, right.
genuinely. Which means if they lose any of those other games, they're screwed. If they lose any of those other games, they're screwed because that was their toughest game, and they couldn't even score more than a touchdown.
Well, you better start killing these teams the next week
Yeah.
to get some better grace. And how do you feel about how Ohio State coming off of their national championship, coming off of Ryan Day, the coach getting caught with nipple piercings,
Yeah, I saw
stuff
that.
like that,
Hey, whatever, get your freak on. That's fine.
right?
Listen, I think obviously they deserve to be the number one team. They're the national champions. They beat the preseason number one team. If I'm at Ohio, I'm looking at the game that Miami Notre Dame played, and I'm looking at the game LSU and Clemson played. Because my personal opinion, and some of this is just as a fan watching the games and enjoying them, both those games were better than the one that I played. Some of that's not your fault. You can't help the Arch Manning can't get a completion, right? But to say that they're the prohibitive favorite because they took out the great and powerful Texas in week one, I think would be very much an understatement. We haven't seen Penn play a solidly substantial team yet. So Penn State could also be someone they have to watch out for, certainly in their conference, but maybe even more broadly. But yeah, Miami had an awesome game. LSU had a beyond awesome game. Notre Dame in loss honestly looked very good. Clemson definitely lost some shine in their loss, but it wasn't a shutout. It wasn't a complete, disaster like Texas. So yeah, I would be looking at those four teams and saying, all right, we're in the lead, but I don't know how far. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
I do. Now, one of the schools you do have to mention after this weekend, and a team that how do I explain this? A team that really that are starting to take a step backwards. We had the University of Alabama fall to the University to Florida State University, right?
Mm-hmm.
They lose by a score of 31-17. Florida State pounded the run game against Alabama's defense, throwing all over the place. And I mean, it looked really, really bad for them. Just 1 second. So, yes, lose it by a score of 31-17 at Florida State. This was Alabama's first ever season opening loss in 24 years, their first loss in August in program history. The Seminoles dominated on the ground with 230 rushing yards. Played with physical intensity and energized both sides of the football. And this could be a big turnaround. Remember, Florida State, the laughingstock of college football last year, they went 2-10, and this is a great way to bounce back into the fold. And yeah, I mean Alabama. looking very, very poor, coming in as a 13.5 point favorite, and it was the opposite, right?
Hmm.
Absolute opposite. I mean, Ty Simpson looked okay,
Hmm.
but this defense didn't have an answer for Florida State. Ryan, are we seeing the beginning and the end of Alabama's dominance? That's the big question I have to ask first.
I
Going up
think
losing against this ACC team that's not ranked.
uh yeah, I mean, well, so was Florida State not ranked? I thought they were ranked 14.
No, no, not here.
Uh,
Not at least
okay.
last week. They don't
Not
have.
last week. Yeah, this week they're ranked 14. But yeah, I think what we're actually seeing is I think that the decline of Alabama was last year a little bit, but the college football apparatus hadn't hadn't admitted that yet. No, the team is not what it was. The Saban dynasty is done. I think, frankly, the Saban dynasty being done doesn't have to result in these horrific losses, but they're trying to. Again, we you talk about expectations. College football is a big expectations game. Alabama has been inflating expectations to a point that they couldn't reach. Um, they're trying to match the Saban era with this new guy. He needs to be his own dude. He needs to come up with his own plan. He needs to make his own like his own everything. He needs to start over. Your coach retired. You start over, and that comes with some hardship. Um, Now again, Alabama will always be prestigious location because of its alumni network, but I think that the team is playing rough. I mean, actually, that was a pretty bad loss. I won't lie to you. I'm surprised at how badly they lost, but I never once believed that Alabama was a favorite over FSU just by looking at the two teams. And yes, I know FSU was really bad last year, like very bad. But Oklahoma had a good game, and they were really bad last year. You know what I mean? It happens. You're not always bad forever, and you're not always good forever. And I think Alabama is learning that they're not always good forever and pretending that they are with the help of of our friends over at ESPN pretty regularly, I think is going to really hurt their program in the long run.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, this is a tale as old as time. Eventually, you fall off the mountain, right?
Hmm.
Again, this is still very early, but Alabama just wasn't Alabama, especially defensive. They're giving up 31 points against a team that's they themselves, FSU, really needing to rebuild this offense. And this is a great way to rejuvenize the program and the school. And the Seminoles and had to do what they had to do. And Alabama went down 13 points. Sorry, I should say
Hmm.
13 spots in the ranking. And I think that accurately portrays who they are right now. A team
Yeah.
that is losing, seems to be losing recruitment battles, is now also going up against the realities of the NIL. That some of your programs, some of your contemporaries, some of the schools you're rivaled against are getting these big players now, especially if they offer more money. And I think that's
Yeah.
a reflection of what's going on
Well,
with
yeah,
this
I
new
think
bunch.
I just quickly, we won't get into too much of it, but the reality is that Alabama had an advantage that nobody else had in that they were willing to bend a lot of rules that nobody else was willing to bend before the NIL era. Now that the NIL era has kind of made all of those, little advantages they were willing to press just commonplace, you're seeing a lot of these, a lot of these other programs catch up. And then with Saban gone, you've got Coach Kirby in Georgia, and I really do think that you have to be honest. That's the SEC's gold standard. If you're going to be in SEC football and you want to be at the very top of SEC football, it's Georgia. That's where you want to go. That's where you want to play. And I don't believe that that's changed. I don't think it changed last season, even though Georgia was not the champions. And I don't think it's going to change this season. I think they probably win the SEC this season, especially if their closest competition is Texas, which I don't think it is. I think South Carolina and LSU probably have something to say about it. But generally speaking, yeah, I think they've lost two of their big advantages, which was a very good coach and the ability or the willingness, I should say, to incentivize recruits in a way others couldn't. Now others can, and now they don't. They have just another coach.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Now we switched other gears in another SEC and ACC matchup with the 4 ranked LSU, Clemson taking on the 9th ranked LSU. All
Hmm.
right. And your boy didn't do as well as he could have with Cade Klubnik
No, he did not.
turnover in the ball. Despite being up in the first half up 10-3, Clemson was rolling, and then Garrett Nussmeier um, played a hell of a second half, ending
Mhm.
himself 20 for 38, 230 yards in the air and a touchdown. And LSU's defense was the name of the game, really stopping this run. A missed field goal by the Clemson kicker early in the fourth shifted momentum as well. And then it was all LSU pretty much the second half of the game. They pretty much had the ball the entire second half, and then it was too late for Clemson.
Hmm.
What happened, Ryan?
I mean, you kind of said it actually just there. LSU caught some momentum in the second half. I mean, we saw Clemson make a late drive. I was watching that game and I was pumped. I was like, oh my God, are they really gonna do this? Obviously they didn't. I think they just, LSU got hot in the second and Clemson ran out of time to fix it. Which is not to say that they necessarily, not to say anything. That's how football works. You have to win within the allotted time. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, that last drive showed sparks of a really good offense firing behind a very good quarterback. I don't believe that any of the things that I said in our preview about Clemson are untrue. At least not to this point. Although, if I'm Clemson and I watched Miami play a much closer game against a very tough team, not that LSU's not a tough team, it is. But that Notre Dame game was the best game of the week without question. That was week one standout. And I think the Clemson LSU game is probably behind it somewhere two or three in terms of games to watch. But yeah, there's definitely some competition, but after week one, but I do think they're still the best in their conference. I think you saw that quarterback and that team, especially that offense, play at the very end, but they didn't pull it together until it was way too late to actually make a difference. And so they went down. They went down by a touchdown, which had they pulled it together 2 minutes earlier, they may have been able to get that touchdown and take it into overtime or secure a field goal to win.
Yeah, right. And I think that's just again early season jitters too.
Yep.
But Clay Klubnik, I think as the Cade Klubnik had more time in the second half, I do think it would have been a lot different. But that's just
Yep.
a great job from LSU's defense
Defense, yeah,
ultimately.
keeping the ball down, and then honestly LSU's offense keeping the ball with LSU. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were consistently able to just extend. They had that drive toward the very end. God, I forget how many minutes were left, but that was the longest drive of my life. I was watching. I was like, we got to get the ball. I was like, someone has to try and get the ball from them because they were just holding on to it for as long as possible. They got what they needed and nothing more. They never ran out of bounds. They never had to scramble and throw away a pass to stop the clock. Like they kept that ball forever toward the end of that game.
Like a typical Eagles game in the
Yeah,
NFL, do the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, essentially.
So I think one player who got a lot of praise over this weekend was the Michigan quarterback in Bryce Underwood.
Underwood, yeah.
Now, Michigan handled New Mexico pretty well, despite I would be a little concerned to give them too many points, 17 points.
Yep.
But in the debut at the big house, 34, scoring 34 points against New Mexico 17. I saw a player who was smooth, took low risk passes, utilized his running back, who also had a great game as well. The Michigan running back and Justice Haynes. And the offense looks really good. I think he prevented making turnovers on the ball. He showed his great speed. He showed his powerful force. I think Bryce Underwood had the best debut out of anybody in college football, and he's somebody to look at. People
Hmm.
notice that he's really good in the pocket as well, and I think he just has great football IQ. Bryce Underwood now has really established himself early on.
I agree. It was definitely, especially because there were so many, frankly, poor debuts. This week, people were expecting more out of some of the top people debuting at the coaching and playing side of things. Um, he definitely had an impressive debut, and he looked like he led the team, right? Like he looked like the leader of a very good football program, which that's what Michigan has frankly been needing.
Yes, exactly what they've been needing, especially, shaking off the bad PR that's happened to them with these sign stealings and everything. A
Yeah.
nice debut and maybe a quarterback who's going to make his presence known around the country.
Hmm.
Now, just also switching really quick, and you mentioned it briefly with talking about Notre Dame and their stellar game against the University of Miami, right?
Yep.
Miami winds up winning 27-24, a
Hmm.
back and forth effort,
Yes.
with late game tying games, especially with late game tying plays
Yeah.
that took place. Just been went out and just barely missed it overtime. Wound up it wound up being an impressive game for Carson Beck.
I
Um,
did.
but very, very good stuff there. And I was feeling they wound up tying it late. CJ Carr, who himself had two touchdowns and ran in for one, but it was ultimately Miami's clutch field
Hmm.
goal by kicker Carter Davis at 47 yards with just a minute left that took it in this Catholics versus convicts
Yep.
matchup that they were for some reason bringing up that was cool 40 years ago. But also who stuck out, Malachi Tony, 6 catches for 82 yards with a touchdown. And the transfer of LSU, CJ Daniels, also looking good in the air. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit pretty much every point. While not a debut to college football, Carson Beck's debut in Miami definitely had a lot of pressure. Sorry about that. A lot of pressure on his shoulders because he was the top prospect and he basically just kept falling down every year. But if this continues, he seems to have found a rhythm at least. But yeah, it was again they lost, which is why obviously you can't give them too much praise because they lost the football game. But Notre Dame looked like one of the five best football teams in college football in their loss, which I do think is impressive. They do have a new quarterback this year over last year. They really like their in terms of their returning tools. They've got the what Jeremiah Love, who did have a fairly good game. So I don't know. To me, that was also very impressive that how they still look like a contender for the championship after an offseason. Even in this loss to Miami, which only then makes Miami's win more impressive because Notre Dame was in the championship game. Like that's
Yeah.
not they're no slouches and they didn't look slouches either. I think this Notre Dame team might even have beaten this Ohio State team. Um, it's hard to
Ooh.
tell because Texas has a better defense, I think, probably than Notre Dame. Um, although I mean, it was a high enough scoring game, but it wasn't like a crazy high scoring game. We saw crazier, right? So both defenses certainly, held their own. Um, but yeah, I genuinely do think that Notre Dame should again, obviously they lost. They're gonna have to take their licks in the standings and all that for losing. Makes sense. But I think they should practice like they're still, like they're still a championship caliber team because they played like one. And if they continue to focus, don't change too much. Like Miami was just the better team. You know what I mean? Like that day, Miami was the better team that day. I think they have a squad that can play against anybody.
Yeah, dude. I'm excited to see where both of these schools go this season. I think we'll definitely see them throughout the ranks this year. The Tennessee and Syracuse game was one to make of note,
Hmm.
especially with the Vols debut start this season to me. You
Hmm.
know, where could I go from this dude Joey Aguilar with an impressive 60 for 28, 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looked
Hmm.
pretty composed. The running back is Star Thompson with 92 yards and 12 carries, and he was able to come out of the backfield. I think you got to really watch out for this team. Their defensive backs look great. They're very balanced with a total of 493 yards, while the Syracuse Orange clearly still has some growing pains to go. Um,
Yes.
a rough offensive line, defensive lapses were exposed, and this coach definitely looked like he wanted to jump into the middle of the road after this game. But Tennessee, pretty good start against a definitely a
Hmm.
poor Syracuse team, but I think offensively they should be talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not disagree with you because it was a very good showing from Tennessee.
Hmm. And then just the last one to point out, Boise State impressed so many people last year. They take on the University of Southern Florida, who people did say a team to watch out for, to be fair, including some
And
of our
that's true.
comments, right?
That's
But
true.
in one of the YouTube comments, but they had a poor showing to start their season this year, man. What's going on with Boise State? With ranked at 25, and ultimately this Friday night they lost 34-7, Ryan.
Mm-mm. It
Quite the
was,
route.
yep, it was a fun little side story for last season. I think we have to be honest, the one or maybe in a wild year two wild card teams essentially. Let's call them that from the group of six there, or five if you don't count Pac-12, because they're not real.
Mhm.
But those wild card teams, they're going to change frequently and probably fiercely because they don't have the same recruiting advantage because they're not a well-known, well respected program overall. And that's what we saw. They had, Boise had a awesome player, probably a generational talent for their school.
And
Um,
Ashton
Ashton
GNT.
GNT. Yep. And they were rewarded by getting to play in the college football playoffs. They got to have some Heisman conversation as the runner-up, like all that stuff, all good, and they deserved it. They built a team around again. They got a generational prospect. They managed to keep him, and they built a team around him, and that's great. But he's gone, and that means the party is over. Um, yeah, that means the party's over for Boise. I don't think we're gonna see them in the top 25 of the rest of the season. I think they had to put somebody in that spot.
Hmm.
Or didn't have to, but they wanted to, and so they did. And now I think the next time we see somebody like a Tulane or whatever make it up there, it'll be earned,
Yeah.
not just based off of hype and name recognition. Also, big shout out to Tulane, by the way. They had a very good game against I mean, Northwestern's not certainly not a powerhouse football team, but they are Big Ten. Like they
Yeah.
are they are actually a bigger uh, a bigger program comparatively, and the defense there with what was it? They like the safety had a sack for like 12 yards. It was they had
Mhm.
combined they ended up sacking for what was it? I just saw it. Yeah, 30 yards in sacks between like
Yeah.
four different guys. Ratzliff in his debut had the most rushing yards on the team. He was the passer too, 58% completion rate. So they had a really good game against a pretty good program. They have a little tiny break before they have to worry again. Um, in that break, by the way, runs into Ole Miss. So if they do well against Ole Miss, then I think we can pretty safely say we know who the Boise's going to be this year.
Last year's the biggest upset from last season was Vanderbilt over Alabama. I think
Yep.
Tulane needs to be that big upset of the season for somebody. And maybe it's that Ole Miss game, especially if Ole Miss rises up in the rankings. There's gonna be somebody
Yeah,
between
I mean,
that and Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame. You guys
yeah,
have
yeah.
something like that.
And that'll be what it is. Like right now, the only ranked team they play is Ole Miss. So that's gonna hurt them, obviously. So yeah, if somebody else is able to get a couple, win against a higher ranked person, then yeah, it could shake up everything. But Tulane Green Wave off to a good start. So you know,
And the other niche game, Ryan, a game that people question the safety. I was curious what your thought. You saw what happened with the University of Florida hosting Long Island
yes,
University.
I did. I
I
did see
mean,
that.
I'm just pulling off what the final score wound up being. I
I
just
don't.
had a loss that I'll have that answered in one moment. The LSU, the where literal safety was being questioned. What do I
Yeah,
have it right here?
yeah, LIU did not. I don't believe they scored at all. Yeah,
Wait, hold up. So yeah, 55-0. My boy DJ Lagway with 3 touchdowns in this game. Um, you know how many total passing yards
I
LIU
don't.
had?
No.
33. The leading rusher, Corso, 14 rushing yards.
Dude.
I mean, yeah, they literally had no business. I guess the one thing this guy we have here, Rafael Fasolino, had 9 tackles in the game. That's his bragging rights there in the swamp. But I mean, this is as lopsided as it gets. 451 total yards to 86. Not Florida didn't turn over the ball at all. You want to know the first down differentials, Ryan?
Yeah, let's hear
I mean, Florida had 28 of the 30 first downs in the game. 28 to LIU's
it.
2. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, look, it's
It's hard. I mean, what do you think about these schools willing to get paid millions to get destroyed and embarrassed like that?
it's you're getting paid millions, and that's why they do it. I mean, I guess. I mean, it's Saturday, but any given Saturday, if you have, again, there is no world where LIU beats Florida, but if they manage to have scored and kept Florida to significantly lower than 55, that would be a pretty big deal for college football.
we
Certainly, it would give Florida a
need.
data point
Do you
that they
remember?
needed to think about. You
You
know,
ever heard of that story about Appalachian State being in Michigan in '07?
yeah, yeah. I mean, App
It's been
State.
a
I
while
mean,
of that.
LIU and App State are even not really comparable. I think it's really important that App State is at least in the FBS.
And I think
So
now they
it's
are. I think back then they weren't. But yeah,
yeah,
you're
maybe back
right.
then they weren't, but I'm saying they were a program who was able to move into the FBS, whereas I don't know that LIU has got the same whatever. But it is interesting. You look at the receiving votes for the top 25. Florida had what, 737? That's too high. They went up 2 spaces. I'm like, no. You beat up? It's like you beat up a small child. How did you go up 2 spaces?
I know. We're gonna get right onto that with the rankings really quick.
Yeah.
But Ryan, we also had the goodbye of Lee Corso, his final college game day,
Mm-hmm.
correctly making all his predictions, including the Florida State over Alabama. Even
Only one.
college game day. Yeah, he was the only one. Even Fox NFL, even Fox football's coverage transferred over there. This is
Yeah,
a nice wholesome media moment. One of
I
the few
agree.
ESPN moments that doesn't make you want to pull your hair out.
Yes, I agree. And he was great. The picks obviously were right, which is awesome. But more importantly, he obviously meant a lot to people who work on the show, who watch the show. And so that we got to kick off the season with his goodbye, I think was genuinely very good. And I will see you. I guess I don't know who the new Lee Corso would be. I don't know that there will be one. But it definitely end of an era sort of deal. Not that he was necessarily the biggest part of the show in the last few years, but it's still a nice moment. And I mean, you saw Fox cut to it, so clearly it was something that meant a lot to people, even those who don't work at ESPN.
Yeah, right. Special nice moment there. All right, and let's just look at the top 25
Yeah.
that we can say goodbye. So, what are the big things, the big changes this week? First, we have Ohio State leaping at number 1.
Hmm.
They obviously defeating Texas. They get 55 first place votes, and they're ranked number 1 in the nation. Penn
Hmm.
State is staying at 2. LSU goes from 9 to 3 thanks to their upset over Clemson. Miami jumped 5 spots.
Yep.
They're going in as number 5 after their win over Notre Dame. Florida State rockets into the 14, as mentioned, not ranked to all the way to 14. So pretty cool stuff there. Iowa State goes from 22 to 16 after back-to-back victories, beating Kent State and then winning this week. And Utah gets in the top 25. We talked about them, even getting snubbed during the preview show, but now
Hmm.
they are winning there after beating UCLA. South Carolina is entering the top 10 for the first time since 2014. And the big drops, Texas going all the way to 7 after their loss to Ohio State, and Alabama going from 8 to 21, their lowest ranking in almost 20 years, 2008 to be specific. And a little climb from Tennessee going up 1 space, and you talked about Florida getting rewarded for the slaughtering of LIU.
Yeah, I mean, some you would look at some of this as crazy. It's like Florida again. Florida goes up to for playing a team that had no business being on the field with them and destroying them. But like Indiana wins against I've said it, a solid Old Dominion team.
Yes, you did.
And like, 27-14, respectable, expected. They went down 3. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. To me, that feels crazy. To have it happen that way. But it's one game. I think that's just the reality. Florida will have to play somebody eventually. And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think the top 5 is 100% correct. Um, I would not change anything about that. I think if we go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you could probably reorder some of those. I would say Notre Dame played better than Clemson and Texas, personally. And I think you could even maybe slide Clemson down to 10 and move South Carolina up a bit, just because they won. And again, Virginia Tech is, well, they're no Long Island University. They're a real team. They're a real team from a real conference. That's actually, a fairly decent talent. So I think by and large, it's right. There's like little things I would probably move myself if I was voting. I think Oregon getting 1 vote for number 1 is crazy after a win against Montana State. I don't know who did that. I didn't check, but that person needs to probably check their credentials at the door, especially when Miami, who again did play better than most of the teams in the football this last week, got no first place votes. But yeah, so we'll see.
You will see indeed. And any just looking ahead to next week, just notable matchups, Ryan. As we
Mhm.
talked about with Texas trying to salvage what they got. They're going prime time against San Jose State.
That's right.
Michigan, Oklahoma is going to be playing Oregon, Oregon State, Ole Miss, Kentucky, are the ones that stand out. Anything in particular that you're interested in with next week? The only one I want to
Yeah.
see Bryce Underwood against Smith, Oklahoma, and once
Hmm.
again to see if he could keep this momentum up. The Ole Miss
Yeah.
Kentucky, I think, will be an interesting one,
Hmm. I was
especially
gonna
after
say,
last year. The big upset Kentucky had last year against Ole Miss.
yeah. I think
Nice revenge
uh
game there, possibly.
Could be, yeah. I do think that you're looking at, like you said, Michigan and Oklahoma is probably the one with the most stakes because those are two middle of the pack teams. So a win against one or the other is going to raise one and lower the other. One of the games that I'm interested in, and I kind of hinted at this last segment, is Florida. The number 13 now ranked Florida is playing South Florida. Um, and
Oh,
yes,
okay, yep.
obviously South Florida, their win was sort of kind of chalked up to being kind of a, well, a funny quirk of week one, right? But I don't know. I don't know that that's actually true. Like it would make sense that their complete utter domination of Boise was because Boise just sucks now. And maybe that's true, but we'll see. If they make a close game or even upset Florida, that shows you that, yeah, maybe Boise does suck now, but that South Florida is absolutely a team that could try and find its way into the college football playoffs. Um, and then just personally, I'm Mizzou and Kansas is playing. That'll
Mhm.
probably be a game that I try and watch, 3:30 ESPN. But yeah, I would say I'm most interested in seeing Florida versus South Florida because one, Florida had played again. Cannot stress how they did not play anybody. They basically had a bye week one. And then two, South Florida beat, a championship team and a playoff team from last year. Now, obviously, much diminished without their star player, but it could be one of those rising and falling powers thing.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to watch that one too. That's another one I would be interested in.
All right. Well, Ryan, excellent first show of the week, first show of the year. Let's do this again next week. You'll see us on Monday with it. And don't forget
Yes.
the rest of this week for Projected Conversations. We have an NFL preview being released on Thursday, another Tweet Cap Friday. And then on Monday, we have week 1 of the NFL season and then week 2 of the college football season to reflect on. See you later, everybody. Great job, Ryan Page.
So yeah.